I think your topic for the conference is fantastic, India under construction. I don't think anybody so far has thought about it like that. Because when I imagine this, there are many things which talks about, whether are you talking of which area, which place, what time, for whom, and what time of the day or the season or a location. Because India is blowing everywhere, all the time, everything is happening. I mean, it is one of the most vital places that you could ever find. That is, I will find, And that's one of the great signs, of a thriving country. A culture which is so diverse, a culture which has variety, contradictions, but yet, it is very cooperative. You find the melange of both, and the landscapes are changing. The rural areas which were barren, with one could see the villages and little small settlements are changing there rapidly. And you come closer to the city, the farmlands are going away. And as you enter any city or any town, you begin to see the beginning of a new change, another world happening. And then you see these electrical towers, pylons and factories going up around. You don't know which world one is talking about. And then you go right inside the little town and villages. From those meandering roads you go, and then you go through a bypass, and then you see on an expressway, and suddenly you come back and you find a little chai shop there. So all those things, the noise, the sound of traffic, the kind of people that you see, I don't know really which way one can describe. So it's very difficult to talk about what India is about. I think India is like our Indian food, our Indian clothing, our Indian way of talking, because we never talk in one way. Actually, our language is the language of the eyes and the body. We talk with gestures. We talk, with actions. So there has never been a place where the theatre is not going on. So to me, India, in a sense, under construction, implies that you are going to one of the the largest, the grandest opera. And in that opera, everything you see there, almost from the paradise to the hell. You can see everything. You can see fire burning, like in the Banaras Ghats. So you go to the Kashmir and look at the snow, and you go to Kerala and you find seashore. And all those things, are part of one world, but actually there are many, many worlds. If one had to say that India under construction is going on, I don't know any place which is sleeping. As many cells you have in your body and as many functions that the body does, like a living organism, India is a living organism full of life, vitality, and it's a spiritual place for me. Once I remember when I was talking about technology, then suddenly I realized that technology is nothing but a bigger hammer. It's a tool. So the whole question is, how can that tool become a part of us? Is it going to be the only deciding factor, or also something that we have in our own, the tool which is ours, in which we are also equally equipped with our intelligence, knowledge, information, sensitivity? Is it going to be equally, it will match or not? And I think the first thing that I find is that the technology and our temperament has to match. But the whole question is, India has been over centuries adding to it many layers from the influences of one another, whether it is language, whether it is food, whether it is clothing, whether it is building, whether it is a way of style, whether it is education, whether it is cultural nuances, whether it is belief system. All these things are put together, and like in ancient times, we used to get a blotting paper, a paper which was thick, and every time you wrote with a ink and a pen, then you had to put to dry the ink or absorb the ink, you would put that blotting paper, and over time that blotting paper would have a different color, and that color would tell you that you don't know which color was beginning. And I think that's what India is about. It's a blotting paper in which now we are adding another dimension, a technique and a tool which will communicate and make a thread. So how does one weave this together? I think that is the question. And it is like the Indian fabric which is there, that if you can weave this technology together, then I think it has an advantage. So he says technology has become now the great tool of communication. It has become a communication, but it's also emotionally, culturally and socially relevant. So I think the tool is important. The next question is it really going to add us so we can today now get information from all over? So in business, in commerce, in learning, in all adventures that we want to do, I think it is a great tool, because now one doesn't have a fear of employment. Second, it is a part of a place where you discover new things that you don't know. So you can get jugards made, you can combine things. So we have now a potential. So we have actually opened at Alibaba's cave. You choose what you want to be. You can do where you want to go. And I think from that point of view, technology today for India has become the greatest boon. And I think it is like saying that the heavens are showering on us opportunities, potentials, hope and choice. Now the question is that when you get too much choice, etc., am I going to get isolated, or am I going to be in clusters, or am I going to be together as a large weaving pattern in which you can flow? So it's like saying that you are in a vast ocean and you have banks everywhere, the coast, but you are in the middle, or you are near the coast, or you are on the land. And I think these situations are now going to become very important. So where you are and what you want to do, because today with solar power, with internet and with complete independence of communication, you can be anywhere and you can do your transaction. So the whole question is, do we create that waste, obsolescence, or can we find alternatives, to really not have obsolescence, but get back to something beyond? And I think that is where the problem of India is going to be, that we have the communication and we have a heritage, we have a culture which has compassion, reverence, the choice. So when we talk about a human being, when we talk about life, first is that we talk about some place to live. Then we talk some place to work. Then we talk about ways to move. And then finally we talk about cultivating the spirit, body and mind. So the last part which we talk about, where will that happen? Where will that go? When we make multi-storied buildings, we don't talk to one another. Then we make gated societies on the other side. Industries are made in large scale where communication is not there, and we are becoming robotic society there. Now all these are very useful. It's like it is like what you call a garden of all kinds of trees and plants. The question is, what is that earth holding and what kind of sky do we have, so that we can really have a paradise? And I think that's where the question is. Our society is from the 80, 90, 100-year-old to the newly born and those which will be born. So if it was encased in one volume and there was no exposure to global connectivity of movement or connections, communication, then the tool would have been used to really recycle, adjust and work out something which will be useful to everybody. But when we say I have a choice to also break that skin, the balloon, and go out of it, then what happens? So now we have a society of generation which is wanting to really look at the world beyond India. Beyond India is another world of another culture, another attitude, another social, cultural, emotional ethos. But we have also the world which is in our place, where we talk about values of another kind. One place it is production, money, independence. So one society is going to talk about total freedom, other society talks about partial freedom or a close-knit society. So I think these are now the questions come up, and then we talk about these tools which we are using, but slowly all these tools that we use, technological tools, not physical ones, they are slowly taking away from us our virtues and our ways of thinking, because whole question is, what is the society made of? What is why the society exists? I think the society exists because it needs something. If you were not requiring anything, you would be independent. But when you say you need to have something, and one of the most critical thing is love, emotion and compassion. I think that's where we are different from the non-material things and material things. So I think we are talking about now unmeasurable and measurable. So what is it that we will look at in the society, that the unmeasurable, which is precious to us, will go away and we will see measurable, transactionable and producible. So the Western world produces things. Western world lives in a value which is talked about market, production and standard of life. Our culture talks about quality of life, relationship and ethos and moorings. Now these are non-measurable. So the world is moving in two directions, but certain generation, those who did not have anything, is looking towards the measurable, absolutely. So we have the society in which people who are of a higher strata wants to become like Dubai and New York and others, and they don't care what it happens. What does it mean? I don't think there is a question, because they believe that wealth is very important, but demonstration of wealth is very important. On the other hand, there are other people whom we had before. In education now that is going away, but that was talking about what does it mean to have something, and what is precious, what is sacred and what is unmeasurable. So I think the conflict now in the society, Indian society under construction, is that we will be able to now discuss the issues of the measurables and the unmeasurables, the tangible and the intangible, and how do we use the new tools to combine the two. And I think that's where our challenges are. And they become very important in how kind of institutions we have, what kind of values we want to hold. Maybe they will be different, but still there will be some values. And then we are asking a question that who am I? Am I a human being or am I a robot? Am I the one who loved and has compassion? Do I believe in something that is more sacred, that is more valuable? Or am I going to say, no, this is not what I want to be like this? Which means that we are asking that first question, to be independent, dependent or interdependent. And I think the society, Indian society, if it can still remain that independent, the chances of growth in both the directions are fantastic. One of the most important distinction between life and object is that life grows. In object is stillborn. It cannot produce. And I think the moment we look at these two pieces together, then we know that which has the chance of variations, growth, changes and possibilities. While the other one is only produced, it becomes obsolete and you produce something else. So one has inert, completely inert, one is born dead and one is born alive. And I think that's where I would make the distinction between smart and not normal. First of all, we should really know that is an architect a professional or he is a philosopher or a humanist professional. If he is a mechanical professional, then he thinks of the production and a product. If an architect is sensitive and he thinks that there is another value besides his product, because he will ask question for whom, for what purpose, and what does it do. So a good architect would do something by which things would multiply and grow and create values. The other one will produce, which will become obsolete, and it can be thrown away as waste. I think this is where the whole issue would be. So the architects or any engineer or anybody who wants to do something in the Indian society, I think he should not look at the smart as dead, but smart as alive, because in production life happens. In a product which is stillborn, the life doesn't happen. So an architect usually is not aware. Today architects are imitating, they are bringing something, they are importing and just replicating here without knowing why a building or why a street or why a town is built or why an office is built. They are disconnected from the cosmic forces and the elements. They are actually fighting against the natural elements. The other one absorbs those elements and manipulates and creates something. That's where the difference is. When we talk about new technologies and smart things, we should ask first of all, if the resources disappear, what would happen? If the water, oil, and if the temperatures, if the layers change, what will they do then? So I think the smart person knows the value of the surroundings that are there and about. He knows where his dependence lies. Actually, that's what it is. I think a smart person or a smart city should think about where its survival depends on. So survival depends on not only the climate, not only the natural resources, but also the people for whom they are built. And in that case, then he would say, can my buildings, when they are done, will they activate life? Will they activate discourse? Will they activate learning? Will they activate production? Will they activate generation of joy, celebrations, attitude to values? Because finally, the question would be, for whom do I build the smart city? Am I building it for people to celebrate their life or celebrate their product which is going to get obsoleted? And I think that's where the difference is.